What's up, y'all? Welcome back and welcome to another edition of Disappointing Moments in Hip Hop. Now, today we're going to talk about the legendary Phase 2. Um, I've always kind of known about Phase 2 from a long time ago because I would hear his name, you know, in different circles or see his name on like maybe the back of a record in the credits or something like that. I would hear about him, but I didn't really grasp who he was as a rapper until like the early 2000s. And for the longest time, for many years, I just thought he was a rapper and that was it. Um, and I remember when I actually found his 12 inch, which I want to show you right here. This is the Roxy. And I remember just searching for this for the longest time. I don't remember where I actually bought it from, but I just remember I think I bought this like 20 years ago at least. And this is like just the most New York cover I've ever seen. This this cover just screams New York City. It just screams Bronx. It just screams the street and the just what was the whole culture that was going on back in the 80s like that. This is on Celluloid Records. A lot of the heavier diggers know exactly what time it is with that, but I just thought this was like the coolest record that I've ever seen. Um, as far as just representing New York and whatnot. So yeah, it was cool because all of the old school stuff, especially stuff that was on this label, was stuff that I've always kind of looked for and stuff I collected. I had so much um, from that from this label, Celluloid. A lot of it I've gotten rid of, but this is one of those that it belongs in my collection. The cool, border around here and the picture in the middle. It's just super cool to me. So, found it, put it in the collection, keep it moving, and he. I came to find out that Phase Two was like a really, rest in peace. Was like a really reclusive individual, very much of an introvert. I know in his later years he didn't live in the city. He lived like upstate New York somewhere, and he was a very he had become a very private person. Like you didn't see him at parties, you didn't see him at events. He just kind of stayed away from that kind of stuff. I do remember um, back in 2007, Fat Five Freddy and I got into a little back and forth thing on the internet, and it was about the Hip Hop Honor, the TV show, the Hip Hop Honors, that was on VH1 back in the day, which he was one of the producers for that show, and we just kind of had a back and forth about that, and I remember Phase Two commented on the whole thing. He was one of the many people that made a comment. This was on back in the MySpace days. It was on MySpace, so I thought that was cool that him, among a lot of other like heavy hip hop heads from back in those days, had commented. That's a whole nother story. I need to make a video about that. Anyway, you fast forward years later, and I'm hanging out in New York City. Me and my homeboy John. And John was one of those people, or is one of those people. He knows a lot of people from different neighborhoods, and a lot of people from the city, a lot of, regular, everyday type folk, and a lot of people in the industry because he grew up there. He grew up with a lot of people involved in music. Um, I remember John has introduced me to a lot of people, man. Um, Voodoo Ray and Roy Ayers and Jazzy J and um, Said G and Cool Keith. Just a lot of people, man. A lot of people over the years. I remember one day me and John was hanging out and we were in Harlem and he was just running into all kinds of people he knew from up there, and we was just kind of making our way across town, just kicking it or whatnot. And we ended up down in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and in true John fashion, uh, he runs into somebody he knows, and I'm just kind of sitting there, just kind of looking off, and hey, what's up? Blah 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 blah. Long time, whoop de woo. And they're doing their greetings, and I'm just kind of ignoring them, and then John goes, "Hey, Daryl, I want you to meet Phase Two," and I'm just like, "Whoa, Phase Two? You mean, you mean this Phase Two?" So I didn't recognize him at all. This is like the only picture I had seen of him, like ever, but I didn't recognize him anyway. uh First thing I think of is, oh man, let me get a picture, and I go to pull my phone out of my pocket, and John is like, nah, he don't do this. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we introductions and all that, and I'm just like, wow, because this is like New York. Now at the time, like I said, I only knew Phase Two as a rapper. I didn't know any of the other stuff that he did, that he was involved in. But I remember thinking, man, I gotta figure out a way to, make this whole greeting thing last a little bit longer. So I say to both of them, I go, hey, yo, let's go grab, something to eat, my treat. And they were just like, all right, cool, whatever. So we were down. There's a restaurant, a burger shop called Paul's Burgers or something. It's right there on St. Mark's, and like right around the corner from St. Mark's, right in the heart of the Lower East Side. So we go around there because I like their turkey burgers and whatnot, and we all sit down, and apparently Phase Two was a vegetarian. Rest in peace, Phase Two. Um, and so he ordered some non-meat dish. I ordered a turkey burger. I don't know what John ordered. He ordered something too. But then Phase Two was, or he asked if they had any tea, which they didn't serve any tea. And so I was like, yo, I'll go grab you some tea. We wanted some hot tea or whatever. So I just went like literally out the door and right around the corner to the bodega where they had some tea. And I text a homeboy. I called or text a homeboy somewhere, a homeboy Paco, and I'm like, yo, dude, I'm at a restaurant with Phase Two. And he's just like, yo, man, he's like, big, huge, man, I admire that guy so much. Get me his autograph or something like that. And I go, yo, I'll see what I can do, because I'm still thinking, like, he don't like pictures, this, that, and the other thing. And I don't know if it was before that or after that that John told me that he's just like, he doesn't take pictures, he doesn't sign autographs, he doesn't, he's very, he stays away from people, you know what I mean? He just doesn't trust a lot of people. And so I wasn't sure, but I didn't even have a marker on me, but they had some there at the bodega. So I grabbed some tea, grabbed some markers. Who knows what might happen? Go back to the restaurant. Now this restaurant is like, it's a small restaurant, but it's a real noisy restaurant. And Lower East Side, it it's always 90 miles an hour over there, no matter what day of the week, no matter what time of the day or night. There's just always tons of people. So this restaurant, had the TVs going with the sports or whatever, and then people in there. So it was kind of loud. Phase Two, he has a very soft. He's very soft spoken. So he's talking. We're talking to each other. We're sitting across from each other, and I'm just trying to hear, what he's saying. And I wish I could remember everything word for word, but there was a mixture between me being able to hear him properly because it was so loud in there, and me just being in awe of sitting across the table, from this guy that, I've admired and, learned so much about, through this record, because this is the only record that he did that I'm aware of anyway. And I got the 45 as well. Just had to show you that. Anyway, so we're talking, and we're talking about his record, and he's telling me, do you have this version of it? Do you have that version? Apparently there was, more than one version of that single. I'm like, no, I just have the one with the picture sleeve, whoopie woo. And he's telling me about that. He's telling me about the label Celluloid, how they didn't really do him, do him well. And we're just talking, and I'm just I'm like kind of leaned over the table, and I'm just trying to hear and all of this stuff. And so he starts talking about, his whole life in rap music, and he's telling me about his life in graffiti. He's telling me all kinds of stuff. Apparently he was also a b-boy, so he's telling me about how, his dancing and him in clubs and just doing his thing. I didn't even know all of this stuff. I'm like, whoa, this dude did like everything, you know what I mean? And I know that he had done some album covers over the years. There's a few that I have. So I know he had done some album cover art and whatnot, but I was just like, wow, this is cool, and people are gonna freak out when they find out that we just randomly ran into phase two, and that my homie John knows him real well, and it was just a really cool experience. He was telling me about when he got addicted to crack, and how he was like on the street and messed up on drugs and stuff. Like he didn't hold anything back. He was just telling me about life and his experiences. And I apologize, but I cannot quote him word for word on anything that he told me, because I was just so busy, trying to hear what he was saying, because it was so loud in there. And what I'm gonna say? Hey, speak up! I can't hear. Anyway, so it was cool, man. It was hanging out, broke bread and all of that kind of stuff, and it was really, it was one of those situations. I tell you, when I got back to Phoenix and I started telling different people, yo, man, we ran into phase two just randomly, and we were hanging out, and he was talking about this, that, and the other thing, and he was talking about his record, and all of his whole just career and people were in awe. People who know, what, really, wow, you know what I mean? And so it was really, really cool, man. We had a really nice interaction and whatnot, and so that was that. And eventually we finished and left the restaurant, and we parted ways. I think he had hopped on the train. He was going back upstate or wherever. And then John and I, we kept on doing our thing, right? So fast forward to because I was there for like a week. So fast forward to me coming home back to Phoenix, and I think, man, a few weeks went by, and John calls me. We talk pretty regularly, and he calls me and he's like, yo, man, he's like, y'all talked to phase two the other day. He called me, and we were just talking and chopping it up or whatever, and he was like, hey, man, he really dug you, man. He thinks you're pretty cool, man, and down to earth. I was like, cool. He said he dug, the interactions and the conversation so much that he said he's going to make you a clock. Like, I don't know if it was going to be like a clock, like infused with some type of art or graffiti or whatever, but he wants you to have a piece of his artwork. So he's designing this clock, and he's gonna, you know, give it to me so that I can give it to you. And I was like completely flattered. Like, wow, really? Like, I'm gonna have a phase two piece in my collection. How cool is that? Because I can't imagine what he might charge for his, for his artwork or whatever. And I've been told that they've had, art shows in New York where he didn't approve of it and he wasn't even there, where they were actually selling his art. Apparently, any kind of artwork from him, any kind of tag or signature or anything that he's ever done, as far as, that the whole art aspect is like money, good money. And people have, done a lot of things that he didn't approve of. So to think that he would make something for me, off of us hanging out for hour and a half, is very flattering and very cool. The disappointing part, which if you know phase two, you know where I'm going with this, is um it wasn't super long after that phase two passed away. Unfortunately, which was a big blow to the culture because of who he was. And after he passed, all kinds of videos and interviews, all the stuff started popping up on, the internet. And so I was learning even more than I knew at that point. I really didn't know how deep this dude was and how infused in the culture that he actually was, which was pretty, you know, very educational for me. But yeah, every time I think about that, I think about how disappointing it is to know that he was actively working on a piece of art, a clock of sorts, that he was going to give to me just because he thought that I was a cool dude. So, much respect to that brother, phase two. And I wish, you know, we could have chopped it up again or many times over. And I certainly wish that I could have got this cool piece of art and memorabilia from him. But unfortunately, the inevitable kept that from happening. But I'm still very flattered by the whole idea of it. And man, big ups and rest in peace to phase two. And yeah, this is another Daryl D disappointing moment in hip hop. Thank you guys for hanging out. That's all for now, and we'll see you next time. Thank you to everybody that's been watching my videos and um, staying abreast of the channel. I appreciate it. I appreciate it all. I'll see you again real soon. You guys stay safe. Peace and love.